Awesome. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I wanted to just welcome everyone to our the Philadelphia Stories winter issue reading. I'm so used to doing this for Rosemont. I have to make sure that I don't say the wrong organization. I'm Carla Spataro. I'm the editorial director at Philadelphia Stories. Here with Christine Weiser, who's our executive director, and a host of our editorial board, Courtney Bambrick, and who else is here? Adriana Lacuna and Pam. Pam McLean Parker, thank you for putting up your whole name because my brain doesn't work entirely the way it's supposed to anymore. And I also really wanted to thank Lena Van, who is our organizational genius, who really helps keep us all on track about everything. I just wanted to say a few words about this issue. This was something that came out of our, as an organization, we decided we really wanted to do something to contribute to the community as a whole. And we're really proud and really thrilled to offer this issue. And it's something that we hope will serve as a springboard, and that we are able to always be able to offer and publish authors that represent the entire community and not just bits and pieces of it. So thank you for sharing your work with us. Thank you for sharing your work with the citizens of Philadelphia and the greater Philadelphia area. We're really proud to be able to present this work that you have all shared with us. So I also wanted to thank Lori Tharps for being our guest editor. Lori is in the middle of 2 big deadlines and made time to be our guest editor. So I'd really like to thank her a lot for all of her hard work too. All right, hey. So I don't know how many of these Zoom readings you have been to or have done. I feel like I've done a zillion of them. And one thing that I love to see, because it's really hard for readers to hear applause, is that when someone is finished reading, we can do the jazz hands and then they can see everybody waving their hands. And that seems to be an effective silent way to applaud and all that good stuff. So plus, let me move my mic. Plus, that's a really good way to, who doesn't love jazz hands, right? So, right? Yay! I never get tired of jazz hands. But then you probably all know a lot more about me than you really care to at this point with my Christmas tree and my jazz hands obsession. So, without any further ado, I'd like to get started with the reading. And I'm going to introduce our very first reader tonight, Elijah B. Pringle III has facilitated workshops on writing. Published nationally and internationally, he is nominated for a Best in Net 2020. Elijah has been the MC host for Panoramic Poetry, Moonstone Art Center, Toho Journal, and Philly Cam's Who Do You Love? He has been a mentor to many students, and professionally, he works in the field of mental health, holding an MS in counseling from Villanova University. Please welcome Elijah B. Pringle III.
Hello, thank you all. And actually, the last part of it wasn't me, but that's okay. I've been known to be mental. I like to share 3 poems. 2 are actually published, and I want to thank Laura Tharp, as well as all the Philly Stories family for this amazing opportunity and allowing me to, to finally come out the closet as a writer. The first poem I like to share is called Grandma's Wreath. Grandma's hand, Grandma's hand, in loving memory to my grandson. So who's gonna be her pallbearer? When does her time for grieving end? Grandson, grandson. Now, ain't that peculiar, peculiar as can be? In North Philly, it's always easy to find the right wreath. So grandma buys another outfit for yet another funeral, but who'll be there to pick out her resting clothes? For instead of seeing her seed spreads, she lays them dormant as she gazes through unprepared tears. Yet they flow as if by design, like the Nietzsche genes in her grandson's coffin and on her grandson's daughter. Too young to understand, but joins the choir that wails for daddy. As Mom thinks, how will she say goodbye to her grandson murdered? Or was his life cut mercifully short, the life she wanted to be no part of his because it rendered him conscienceless? First a mind ambush, then finally his body riddled, bullet holes camouflaged by the mortician, his specialty. She looks down, silently thanks that his life has come to an end. For now his spirit can be free and the slow decay ceases. This life I gave the world, I must console, hoping death will be kind and take me, so I can prepare their way to heaven. My children crying at my breast, nursing on anguish and agony. I cuss the world, absentee men, myself. I wonder if I had aborted, would the pain have been this great? But see, the world didn't allow for her or a loving grandson to lay his beloved grandmother to rest. No, the world could only accept him under its condition, 8 to 6 or 10 for good behavior, in prison, uneducated, set free to be a pawn, target practice for rooks and knights. Her men, one move at a time, clueless, heading towards checkmate, first away from reason, logic, then from her embrace, committing suicide, accepting their role in this game, genocide, Negro roulette, spinning aimlessly out of control. And she lightly strokes his furrow to smooth his way to heaven, mindful not to disturb the makeup as she rocks him one last time in her bosoms. See grandma's hand play the tambourine on Sunday. Washing stockings around midnight. The same fashion Daddy's arm would rest on the torn edge of his seldom used easy chair, which sat lonely in a corner trying to be unseen. Mom's arm would rest on the lip of the basin, bending over a sink made white with comics. Water would dance between strong, sturdy hands as she scrubbed vigorously puffer smoked stockings, moving the dirt and dust collected from the week, the fixing the kids for school, the pleasing her man. After the day's work, for money to close the gap between can't afford and thrift shop buying, second-handed stuff, getting another chance. The ritual of familiar made us all comfortable. We knew it was Saturday, soon to be Sunday. Mommy's feet were bunions and corns then. The bottom of her feet black from walking barefooted because her shoes were too tight, and so was money. And I needed new sneakers just so the white kids won't laugh at me. Or we needed something, always something. But ivory soap lathers up extremely well when rubbed against used nylon stocking, about to be glory bound in 8 hours after they had dried in front of the heat vent. Even in summer, the ritual meant everything. The last poem I'd like to share is called Ponds, a Synonym for Hope. There are ponds that find themselves in North Philadelphia. They find their way home in spite of the cement, the asphalt, in spite of the building closing around them. There are ponds that find their way home in North Philadelphia every time rain gathers in corners, and altered terrain does not deter them from finding the natural topography. When the droplets collect, it comes instinctually. It is the earth breathing and breeding and teeming with the life. That is why ponds must find their way, so we can know North Philadelphia before it was Philadelphia, before it was North. There are ponds that find us North Philadelphians. They find their way to us through the cement and asphalt to reconstitute us after being concentrated. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Elijah. I would like you to sing all the readings. That was fabulous. I love that. That was amazing. Our next reader is someone who I've known for quite some time now, and I'm so thrilled that she's a part of this issue. Pietra Dunmore's writing has appeared in Rogue Agent, Penumbra, Causeway Lit, Pine Hills Review, Rigorous, and Hippocampus Magazine. I'm very proud and thrilled to present Pietra Dunmore.
Hi, I'm going to read what's in this issue. It's No One Makes It Big in Philly. Elizabeth did the best she could to make ends meet. There were times she paid the light bill and times the lights went out. Sometimes we had a place to stay. Other times we had to flee in Exodus. Those times I could never bring more than I could carry. We get to the apartment of some new artist boyfriend of hers that I had to call Uncle so-and-so, and he was going to take care of us, but it never lasted for more than a few months. We always outstayed our welcome. I always assumed my father was one of the many artists she had lived with. I had no pictures or physical description, just the drunken ramblings of my mother yelling in an ear-piercing tone that I looked like that motherfucker. I remember going through a phase where I studied every brown-skinned man on the street and wondered if he was my father. His name did not appear on my birth certificate, so all I could do was wonder. When I was around 8, she settled with Fingers, a pianist and singer. She followed him from gig to gig, usually stumbling home in the early twilight hours. A tap at my feet would signal their return, and I'd awake to see his tall, dark figure standing over the bed. All I could see were his eyes in the moonlight, and the red orange of his cigarette dangling from those curving, dark-colored lips. I was forced to sleep on the couch in the living room. I used to share the same bed with my mother, sleeping on her right side, while her night guest laid to her left. Until one evening, Fingers got mad and shouted, "When is he gonna get a bed of his own?" Ever since then, I was forced to sleep on the lumpy old couch in the living room. I hated laying there alone in the dark while he enjoyed the comfort and warmth of the bed and my mother's affections. Watching from the crack in the door as their bodies merged in the moonlight, I'd see how he held my mother and how she looked at him. Fingers would call her baby, and he'd sing to her. In the morning, I'd have to tiptoe past their sleeping half-naked bodies with the fragrance of cigarettes, liquor, and sex stinging my young nose. Forging my way to the bathroom and stepping on their carelessly flicked cigarette butts, together with empty bottles of Night Train lining the threadbare carpet. This became a part of my morning routine. Fingers would usually stir a little when I closed the door after having used the bathroom. He'd rub his eyes, smile dryly, and say something like, "Hey, little man." I'd scowl at him and walk back to the couch, wishing he'd leave so I could sleep comfortably. When Fingers slipped out of the front door in the morning before Mom could prepare breakfast, I could hear her quietly sobbing in the bathroom. When she finally made her appearance in the living room, she'd push a bowl of cereal towards me. As Fingers and Elizabeth's relationship progressed, there would be weeks Elizabeth wouldn't come home, and I'd be left to fend for myself, with nothing but liquor bottles in the apartment. Eventually, I found solace in those bottles. I'd sit in the living room and drink until I passed out, my little body numb to the reality of neglect. While alone, I began to channel my thoughts into a black and white marbled composition book, waxing poetic about the things that didn't make any sense to me, about not knowing my father, about how poorly Fingers treated Elizabeth, and how I wished for a place to call a permanent home. By the end of the year, Fingers stayed with us. I stayed as far away from home as possible. I passed the hours in the school and the library, meandering through the arts section, falling in love with the surrealism of Dali, the artful graffiti of Basquiat, and the collage of Romare Bearden. I began to see my world of abandoned buildings and liquor stores in geometric patterns. I began drawing and sketching this world in a spiral pad, seeing the images before the pen ever touched the paper. I consumed the writings of Richard Wright and listened to the sounds of Gil Scott-Heron and the Last Poets. I was in the library until they kicked me out. Elizabeth and Fingers were up nights talking about moving to New York. Fingers said he was tired of taking the Chinatown bus. Nobody ever made it big in Philly, he told my mother. A few weeks later, my mother told me that we were moving. I didn't bat an eye. I got up from the couch and started the familiar ritual of shoving my clothes into a duffel bag. Moving in with Fingers would just be another one of our many relocations. What kind of dump is he taking us to? I asked. Baby, there ain't no place for you where we're going. I walked down the stairs with my duffel bag and waited for Fingers to start up his Monte Carlo. I hopped in the back, not sure where I was going. Fingers looked at me through the rearview mirror for a while. I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of seeing me cry or asking my mother to pick me over her lover. Elizabeth sat in the passenger seat and remained silent as the car went down Grays Ferry Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pietra. Our next reader is Martin Wiley. As a mixed-race child of the 80s, Martin Wiley grew up confronting and embracing a world that was just as jumbled and confused as he was. His current work attempts to examine what it was to search for manhood in that time and place. For the past few years, he had labeled himself a recovering poet, but his children's love of words has dragged him most happily off the wagon. After receiving his MFA from Rutgers-Camden, he remained in Philadelphia, working at Project Home, being a dad and husband, and finding time, when possible, to write. Please welcome Martin Wiley.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I start reading, I want to say two things real quick. One is a fond goodbye to Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who apparently passed away earlier today. I know myself as a poet, there are a number of things that I've had published that if he hadn't fought for our right to say certain words, they would not have made it into various things. So thank you and goodbye to him. And I would also say, I'm going to announce here actually that I just signed a contract for my first chapbook from Finishing Line Press, which will be out soon. I'll have all the details and pass those on or whatever, but now I can actually officially announce that I have a book coming. Okay, so this first poem is the one that's in the journal. It's called Black Diamonds and Pearls, and the title actually comes from a song by Nas, If I Ruled the World, which is one of the few actual like remakes in hip hop. And the chorus is, if I ruled the world, I'd free all my sons, black diamonds and pearls. So Black Diamonds and Pearls. He tells me of days when even dreams can't wriggle free. I see him struggle to hold the laughing child once alive inside him. Watch him strain to remember how beautiful it can feel to be gentle. There are walls and there are walls. And now I only see him through gun-proof double-thick glass, in this place where chained hearts steadily drip onto already stained concrete floors. And I don't waste time telling him I miss him. I find ways to smile, even manage to drag an actual laugh through his ragged lips, and his fingers aren't too torn when they line up a mirror image of mine. He worries, you see, that I will let go of even this, and I can offer no reassurance, for that same fear has already seized my own broken heart. This one is titled Just More. Mornings have become a heavy weight, eventually getting up and facing notifications on the phone and finding brand new holes in the heart and fearing too many sobbing posts on my timeline. As a kid, I was told knowing is half the battle, but they forgot to say it was always the hurting half. I didn't want to know how we died last night. I simply wanted to wake up to Big Brother's son and take a moment to rest my soul on a porch swing and listen to those precious few happy Nina Simone songs. Get ready to dance and to live and to just be. The existential exhaustion of fury is the part most difficult to explain to those that don't know, to those that don't carry it inside their chest. This system does all it can to break Black bodies, to shatter already wounded minds, and then make certain to stomp any pieces that dare rage in their face, those dying souls that risk existing where prying eyes can see what the living strained to hide. They spy us at our worst. Once we have nothing left to lose, and I'll never understand what they think to gain by putting us out of their misery. Even so, these protests will continue and those tears will wash fresh blood from our cheeks, and we, bearing timeless shoulders that Atlas could only envy, we will lift that weight just one more time, just one more day, and take just one more step. We know no other way. All right, and I have one last one. My son's eyes. My son's eyes at 7 are wide, wide like rivers and wide like singing woods at dawn. And they blossom like sunflowers shimmering in early morning's dew. They dance because they are sparkling comets gleefully traveling light years just for a chance to gently kiss your smile, your heart. They are joyous volcanoes. They are joyous volcanoes overflowing and melting everything they see. They are brown. They are the color of my soul. They are brown and they are alive, and I have to search inside his eyes. I have to study. I have to watch for that ticking, for that twisting, for that silent, unmarked shifting, for that moment when this world no longer notes the soft brown tones in his eyes, only the angry brown tones on his skin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. That was really amazing. Thank you. Our next reader is Courtney C Gamble. Courtney C Gamble was born in Philadelphia, PA, where she currently resides. She is a Watering Hole Fellow whose poems have appeared in Apiary Magazine, As Us Journal, For Harriet, and elsewhere. She continually reflects on the insight of Toni Morrison, who aptly asserted, freeing yourself was one thing, claiming ownership of that freed self was another. Please welcome Courtney C Gamble.
Hello. Also, the last line that was confused with Elijah, but that's okay because Elijah is awesome. is professionally, I work in the field of mental health, where I graduated with an MS in counseling from Villanova. But that's okay. It
Courtney,
happens like that.
I want to apologize to both of you. When I put the bios together, I obviously took the last line of your bio and put it on Elijah. So
Well, all I want to say is this: Courtney knows this from my heart. I call Courtney, and that's why we think it's funny, because Courtney, I call her my daughter all the time. And I say, oh my God, the spirits are making everyone believe it now.
Well, I apologize. I think when I was putting everyone in order, I obviously didn't cut and paste things appropriately. So my apologies. Courtney, I'm really looking forward to your reading. So I'm going to shut up now and let you read.
Thank you. No harm done at all. What I want to do is just briefly read just a sentence or two. I am very aware that Audre Lorde and Toni Morrison are born on the same day, which is February 18th. And obviously my life quote is in my bio from Toni Morrison. The reason I still write, the reason I started writing again was in part because of this essay, Poetry is Not a Luxury, which was is published in Sister Outsider, written by Audre Lorde. And she says, for women then, poetry is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity of our existence. It forms the quality of the light within which we predicate our hopes and dreams towards survival and change. First made into language, then into an idea, then into more tangible action. And I will begin this reading with the Pullman in Philadelphia Stories. I'm honored and esteemed to be published in Philadelphia Stories because I live here. And I think that's awesome. And because survival is something I think about a lot. And obviously that's part of the reason I submitted to this particular issue. Self-portrait in my hometown. I stumbled across a bad joint. It was me with droplets of moist Negro on my collarbone after taking a shower. It is my accent too, my pride and glory. It is everything water, ice, and pretzels about me. It is the way no one is surprised when I announce from West Philly, because that is its own blessing. It is the reason I cut my eyes at the patient cerulean sky, because the afternoon sun tried to challenge my radiant ways. I know I be drawn sometimes, but I don't care. I'm the type of John that will teach you how to be overzealous without feeling guilty. I know how to tantalize a fresh breeze with agitated exhales after I catch my breath. Even when I frown in public, it is mainly for survival. Sorry, y'all, I was like, on my Microsoft Word. It messed me up. Okay, these are only 3 of the poems I'm planning on reading for you all. Thank you so much for allowing me to. Message to white men who stare. This body, all kinds of perilous and true, seek no collateral. Your gaze troubles obsidian skin with the hubris of whiteness. You wipe your phallus clean of bestiality. Captivity welcomes dominance as pink as pleasure. As conundrum as my ability to house your deepest insecurities, I conceive the possibility of loving your illegitimate children and pardoning the lovers you coerce to breed me in seeding sheds, bloodied with trespass. This is a body that pressures your semen into black diamonds. This is a body that has long fantasized about how to gouge your gauge at midnight. For white men who stare, it is a courtesy for you to ever take a privileged glance. This body speaks. The limbs of this body refuse to die, and refuse to be questioned, and refuse to be fetish, and dares society to accuse it of conceit. And this body celebrates all of its golden glory, and winks at the sun, and flashes neighbors, and doesn't think twice. And this body exfoliates the debris of whiteness, and refuses to whitewash with bath salts. And white women want the candy and not the wrapper. Sorry, y'all. And they want the flavor and not the experience. and this body knows. And survivor is a miracle, and this body knows. And hope is all there is to have, and this body knows. And this body knows hope. And this poem, which will be my last poem, was written because approximately 2 years ago, I read an article about a Black woman who needed to get a transplant for her heart. And she went to 4 different hospitals before she found a place that would do the transplant for her, meaning she was going to die and no one was going to do anything about it. I wrote this poem before I probably even brushed my teeth. And I found her on the internet, and she knows about this poem because I found out about her story on People magazine. And I was trifled and disgusted that her life was deemed not worthy of saving. Her name is Mrs. Sharon Gilmore. And the poem is called, This Is Why Black Women Die. 1. This is why Black women die. They are too sick. They are not sick enough. I am too fat. My support system is not large enough. My children have different fathers. This is why Black women die. I am not worth saving. I went to 4 hospitals for a cure. I wrote my 3 children goodbye letters. All my life, I had to fight. 3. This is why Black women die. There is no penalty for my rejections. There is no diagnosis for my outrage. There is no prognosis for my pain. There is no grievance procedure for underestimating Black women. This is why Black women die. This is why Black women die. And this is why Black women refuse to die. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Courtney. It was really, really amazing. Our next reader is Mariah Gant. Mariah is a Black woman artist based out of Philly, an alumnus of Vassar College. She studied drama and English, focusing on acting and poetry. Mariah's work has been featured in 3 print publications with Z Publishing, as well as online with Distance Yearning, Lucky Jefferson, Mixed Bag, and Passenger's Journal. Forever fantasizing on the phenomenon, Mariah's writing explores relationships, identity, and the cosmos. Visit her poetry Instagram at @MariahGPoetry or check out her artist website, mariahgant.com. Please welcome Mariah Gant.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be included in this issue of Philly Stories, and I just want to say thank you all so much, and also for having a space for us to be able to present our work. So thank you so much. First up, I'm going to read my poem that is included in this issue, and this poem is called Tea Scars. Little girl who resembles me, with your bright plastic bow barrettes knocking too close to your eyes and matching striped shirt with loose leggings, I want to warn you. One day when the world feels crisp and smooth like the perfect PB&J, you'll find a crushed box thrown away in the cobweb avenues of your mind, left alone with the bow ripped off and a drab, desolate card scribbled with, "You're welcome." When you move to open it, all those sour sneers and cruel fingers pointing to tease your dripping, nappy hair after being pulled out of the pool, all that and more will sink into the gaping place between your shoulders. You will know this is no normal gift. Feel that mauve dread moving in, the same shade of mom's nightgown. She will wear it like a cape to lull you out of this broken nightmare. Listen to her. She will teach you to morph that gift-wrapped burden into a medallion. Wear it with jubilance. And when she gives you a mantra for your mahogany beauty, burn it onto the roof of your mouth like hot tea. It will prove powerful against these curses. When people move you to feel any less golden gilded than you will grow to be. Great. All right, let's do a couple more. I'm gonna read this poem. It's called Clemency and the Whole Fruit Bowl. And this was featured earlier, or I guess last year. Oh, that's still weird to say. Featured last year with Passenger's Journal. Clemency and the Whole Fruit Bowl. 1, a prayer for forgiveness. A prayer for the space between your eyes where you feel the migraine first. 2, I think of Mercy and I find her right there. Soft fingers and a streak of gray running through her hair. A mother or auntie of sorts, doling out punishment between bites of just ripened mango. 3, we've been battling for sweet fruits, for more mercy and humility and clemency. And, you know, I tasted a clementine for the first time not too long ago. I thought of baby soft cheeks and a syrupy tang of compassion. I'm looking for you to do the same, to hold the cross to my forehead, the space between my eyes while I am pleading for clemency to show herself vivid and explicit in a courtroom of our peers. See, it's the clementines again. Clemency. She has a way of appearing veiled in the silence of a stone-faced judge, while all we have is a prayer. Prayers for paradise, a release to reality, a land of patience and leniency, milk and honey, with nothing more to sort through in the whole fruit bowl. And I have one more, and this poem is called Homo erectus, and it's a little bit about being from Chicago and also just being a human. So, Homo erectus. Standing in front of Sue, Chicago's massive pet, T-Rex in my own backyard, seeing a glimpse of my own history in those eyes, empty, but holding a vast many years. You and I, lovers strolling through an overpriced gift shop, glancing over the kitschy bookmarks drawn in only for the kids-oriented exhibit, sifting through gravel and sand, fingers crossed to make the next discovery. If we unearth a fossil, can we find ourselves in these light as air bones, preserved beneath our feet outside these museum walls? Not just a land before time exploration, but rooted in the yawning gut of the past. Unknown, vast. Catch the DeLorean and roam amidst the expansive green or the crackling trails of dust, piercing together the moments between epoch to epoch. This anatomy of you and me, we are all just dinosaurs. Not only our grandparents with their bingo chips, but even us with our Palm Pilots and sparkle barrettes. It all must be preserved somewhere, yes? We enter another epoch now. They will use a small hand shovel and tiny brush to sweep away the centuries that separate our graves. And one day, on a dig across the Midwest, the detritus will be pushed away and there will be smiling. Our spines curved and fingers curled inward from the typing and the grasping of the pen. Homo erectus, regifted for the next eon. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. That was, wow, you guys, wow, you're really filling my heart with a lot of emotion, all of you. It's incredible. Thank you. Our final reader tonight is Misty Soul. And Misty is going to be sort of our transition because Misty's art is also featured in the magazine, but I'm introducing her right now as a writer. So Misty Soul is a writer and a visual artist from small town Pennsylvania. She creates art to explore Black people's connections to family, nature, and speculation. When she isn't painting, writing, or homeschooling her 2 kids, Misty enjoys making meals from scratch, gardening, and foraging for wild edible plants. She currently lives in and creates in Philadelphia. Misty's work is featured in both literary and visual genres in our winter 2021 edition. You can visit her website at mistysoul.com. Please welcome Misty Soul.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So honored to be here. I love Philadelphia stories. I've lived in Philadelphia almost 20 years, and I've thought about submitting all that time, and I feel like I picked the right moment. And you all are amazing. I'm just really honored to be in the company of such just phenomenal writers. So my story is called Coal Black, and it's I like to write about Black people and our connections, like she said, to wellness. But when I'm writing uh, and creating stories, I like to think about what nature has to say as our ally. Um, I like to bring it into the conversation of our oppression and our liberation. So this is Coal Black. The story of what happened during the summer of 2020 is lost, or rather, someone just dusted it over, and if you put a little breath on it, you'll reveal it all. The only abnormalities you can find in the official records have to do with the weather. If you want to know what was really going on, you've got to compare what you find on social media with what was officially reported. Check Ball Snatch, Fake Butt, and Ingerstam. You'll see. Things just don't match up. Maybe you've got a water gaze. Get a clean bowl and fill it. Maybe you'll get some answers that way. I don't know. Back then, the reporters gave no indication that anything was unusual. They continued to report the weather like nothing was wrong. It was August, and not once had officials given us citizens an explanation for why it hadn't rained all summer. Every city experiences an occasional drought, but it wasn't dry. Far from it. There should have at least been a mention of it. No official source, no TV weatherman, no newspaper, not even weather.net gave an explanation for the all-encompassing mushy grayness hovering over the city. Each morning, a thick fog rolled in off the Delaware River. It was so massive, it looked like God had hiked her puffy white skirt above her knees to avoid the water. Then, for the rest of the day, a seemingly malcontent, monochromatic shadow colored everything, and no one said anything about it. Imagine normal, temperate summer weather being like this all of a sudden. Dawn rises up, and there might be a wind that's a little aggressive, a little more than flirtatious with the hair that hangs about your neck. It teases and then definitely threatens, slowly becomes tempestuous, and by mid-morning the sky cracks and rolls, but never opens. There was no rain. Never. At least there wasn't any officially reported. Every day with the same reported smile, the weather person in her too tight cocktail dress and pinup girl makeup announced the same. Smothering humidity, high temperatures, severely overcast skies, possible rain. But it was ridiculous. Everyone knew that it rained, just not continuously and not over a very large area. It was known to rain on one person or one car or one house at a time in torrents. Hurricane conditions for an average of 4 square feet for an average of 4 seconds. They didn't lie, not really. The media, indeed the people, simply ignored these uprisings, which only amounted to the discomfort of a few, who were often other anyway. A new fried chicken and milkshake place had opened up across from the park next to the new tiny art gallery, opposite the popsicle store, the pickle store, the mayonnaise store, and the barley beer store. It seemed to Sunny that there was now a store for everything in her neighborhood. How about a trip to the cotton ball store, a dish soap store? Sunny imagined one day these specialty stores would cover the city, and instead of a supermarket, you'd get each ingredient for your sandwich from a different place. And at the end, your tomato on rye with vegan curry mayonnaise would cost over $100. How ridiculous would that be? But for now, couldn't a sweet, thick milkshake cheer her, lift the numbing gray fog clinging to her heart and mind? As if in defense of the thought, an angry, still cloud began forming over her head as soon as she stepped off the number 40 bus. Sunny barely escaped the rain. She stepped quickly through the glass doors that had been covered in plywood after the last riots. Merry bells rang, startled her, and bright sounds to match the shockingly bright walls and halogen lights. The inside of the shop had been sterilized of all the violence and uncertainty that filled the streets around it. Sunny ordered her shake from the counter girl with the blonde hair. She had a plastic smile and empty blue eyes. Vegan shake, please, Sunny said. I'll bring it to you in 10. No chicken today? Vegan? Right, she said with a tiny smirk. Sunny slid onto a stool at the counter in the back and carefully peeled off her damp cardigan. From her vantage point, she could people watch here. She could clearly see everyone sitting at the tables and in booths. There was a thin slice of glass left uncovered by the plywood, and so she could also spy the anonymous raincoats and umbrellas walking past outside the shop. There was a Black couple in the booth closest to the window that kept grabbing her attention. They were the only other Black couple in the restaurant, and although most of the Black faces she passed in the street these days were gloomy and wet, victims of rain, their houses, maybe, even torn up by the summer's flash storms, these two seemed happy. The sun wasn't shining at all, and still their faces were reflecting some source of inner light. The waitress brought over a basket of hot chicken, which she sat in the middle of their table. Give me some, the girl said. The man looked at her with a devious grin. You better keep your hands off my food, girl. She placed her hands on the table and leaned forward, ready to pounce. I will bite the shit out of you, he said, still smiling. Stop playing. He placed a protective arm in front of the basket. He began to eat greedily, barely held in his laughter, and only paused to drop the chicken and lick his fingers to cool the burning. His date saw her chance. She pushed his arm aside and snatched a wing, just as he was about to attempt another bite. Let me try this here. The girls at my school said this place got good chicken. The woman pulled the wing from her mouth. Her teeth took most of the meat from the bone. The man spoke first. This is nasty as hell, he said. It's soggy as fuck. Dang, she said, and spit the bite she had taken back into the basket. Ain't no salt on it or nothing. And the piece you bit is bloody in the middle. He looked as if he wanted to vomit. That's so trite. That's what you get, woman. How you gonna let some white girls tell you where to get chicken in your own neighborhood? What the hell is artisan fried chicken anyway? I could have got better chicken on the block with some salt, pepper, and ketchup, she said. Right? Like 10 cents a wing. All day. They both laughed until they were holding their bellies. They sat closer. He grabbed the back of her neck and they pressed lips. Sunny swiveled her stool back toward the counter and sighed. Her milkshake had come and melted. She hadn't even noticed. It was just as well. Twisting to and fro on her stool, she glanced once more at the couple as they made their way to the door in each other's arms. They were the brightest thing in the room, not the walls or the lights, and when they left, they carried the sun out with them. She imagined they were in love. The way the girl kept smiling and the way the boy kept touching her, she imagined she must have been witnessing love or something like that. Sunny paid for her forgotten milkshake and left. Her rain cloud had waited above the door of the shop to escort her home. She glanced at it threateningly from time to time as she walked the 4 blocks to her house. She didn't even bother to put up her umbrella. Fuck it, she thought. Let it rain. But it didn't. When she got to her house, the front door of the apartment was open, but the lights were off. She wondered where her roommate was. But as she neared the top of the stairs in the communal hallway, she could hear commotion in the bathroom. A less experienced partygoer may not have recognized the faint noises she heard as retching, but she knew, before she saw, that her roommate Mel was throwing up in the toilet. Sunny took the last few steps in bounds. She found Mel with her head in the toilet, looking distressed and even more pale than she usually did. She helped her into the bedroom and sat her on the bed. Sunny noticed that the personal cloud, her gray cloud, had hung around and was now outside the bedroom window, making a storm just for her. Fat droplets began to assault the pane. Mel lowered her face, as her eyes also began to shower the front of her lavender tank top. Her tears came in torrents. Puddles began to form in her upturned hands. I'm pregnant, Sonny, and I think it's Alan. Mel did her best to push her words through the water. Wow, Mel, can I be the godmom? Sonny asked. Don't be stupid. I can't have this baby, she said. Sonny moved to her friend's side. I'll help you. She gently brushed the hair out of her eyes and held her tear-soaked hand. And you won't have to worry about money. Your parents will give you money, right? Not for a half-black baby, Sonny. They just died. They disowned me. For real this time. Sonny stood up and moved away. Well, no, that's crazy, Mel. It's your baby, so they'll love it. Besides, your parents aren't racist. They've always been really nice to me. How many times have I been to your house? Well, that's because you can't get their daughter pregnant, dummy. Of course, we're nice to Black people. We don't fucking have babies with them. My nanny was your color, Sonny. Mel stood glaring. I'm getting rid of it. That's what I'm gonna do. Mel, I'm sorry, she said quietly. I just can't do it. And she left the room. Sonny stood in the same place in the middle of the floor, staring at the empty spot on the edge of her bed where her friend had just been. She didn't think. She just stood wondering what to think or do, if anything was to be thought or done. She turned toward the window, which the darkened sky had transformed into a mirror. For a moment, the rain racing down the glass made it look like she was crying, but she wasn't. She couldn't. She certainly wanted to, but couldn't choose between the many reasons why she might. Her friend had been the one crying, but somehow Sonny was the one soaking wet. And now the rain was inside. She ran her hands over her cottony, kinky curls and briefly felt self-conscious, felt herself an enemy of her own skin. But then she felt anger and love too. She remembered the couple she had seen in the restaurant, how they radiated love. And for a brief moment, Sonny wanted to curse Mel, but instead she said this prayer for her and her baby. I hope this child is born, and I pray it's born full of love and health, she prayed. And dear God, I pray it's born black as coal. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Misty. Wow, really. Wow. Everyone, you have all just been amazing. And I just want to thank you for sharing your work with us, and really, really thrilled to be here to hear all of this. I'm going to turn the program now over to Pam McLean Parker and our art editor. And we're going to talk to some of these amazing artists that are a part of the issue tonight. So Pam,
Great,
take it away, my friend.
Thank you, Carla. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Good. Thank you all for spending the night with Philadelphia Stories, and a huge thanks to all the contributors who just shared your work with us tonight. Huge, nice, magnificent. And thanks in advance to our 8 winner artists who are joining us tonight. I'm really excited to hear you speak about your work. I have spent a fair bit of time and then some with each of your 8 pieces, and I'm really, really excited. And I know that we're all in for just a huge treat. In every way, it's an honor to serve as art editor for Philadelphia Stories, and this issue is really special. I cannot wait for my print copy. I am going to make a maneuver here to share my screen. So let's make sure this works. Are you all seeing our cover? Perfect. There we go. I should be able to get to my next image. It's not letting me. Give me a second, folks. Misty, thank you very much for presenting Coal Black for us. You have the distinguished honor of being featured both in our literary portion of the magazine as well as in the art. And I want you to talk tonight to us about Dollar Dollar Bill Y'all. I just have to move a little further in my images to be able to pull that up. Misty,
Okay.
tell us about your piece.
Dollar Dollar Bill Y'all. It's the original is a work on paper. It's about 11 by 14 and it's mixed media and acrylic. So it's got a lot of texture, the actual the original, and it has a dollar bill on it, and it really is a piece about reparations. I actually have a copy of it here, if you can see.
There it goes.
Yeah, and the dollar bill is kind of broken, and then in the middle we have that geometric shape, and then there's also kind of like a circular here, and that's really an alchemical reference to squaring the circle and doing the impossible. And a lot of the work that I do is about alternative knowledge and Black people's wellness, and how our traditional arts connect us to the natural world, plants, nature, weather, things like that. And I feel like that's what the planet needs to be thinking about right now. But I feel like reparations would help us to take some of our energy out of survival and put it into the kind of creativity that we're going to need to move into the next centuries and help this planet to heal, for the next generation. I really feel like that's something that my people are totally equipped to do, but I feel like we need some resources put into our communities, and that's what this piece is about. So.
Misty, tell us a little bit more about the actual process of collage in your work.
Okay. So the background is kind of an abstraction and very loose brush strokes. And then over that, we have other pieces that are collage. So what's going on is, while I'm painting one painting that might be more figurative, I'm making marks. Any painter can tell you a lot of times you'll have like almost like a scratch pad or a place where you're cleaning your brush and making marks in between the marks that you're putting into your composition. But I actually like to use those in other compositions, because I feel like those random marks tell the story of the other painting that you were doing. And so then after that, there's like pieces of paint that are repurposed here. And I just kind of build until I get these shapes that I want in this visual language.
Thank you for sharing both of your pieces in Philadelphia stories tonight, Misty.
Thank you for having me. Accompanying with a lot of great people, wonderful art and writing in this issue. And I'm also giving away this piece. So yeah, if you go to my Facebook page, just Misty Soul, MISTYSOL on Facebook, you'll see a link in the bio or on my timeline that'll send you to the giveaway page. So all you have to do is enter your email address and your name, and on March 5th, I'll announce a winner. Wow. So you'll get this signed copy, special Philadelphia Stories edition. It's on archival paper, museum quality. It's great stuff. So just as a thank you to folks who follow my work.
Thank you. That's very cool. Someone's going to get very lucky.
Yes.
Thank you, Misty.
Thank you so much, Pam.
To speak about the art across the board in this issue, I would want to share a couple of things with you all. Ultimately, when we put out the call for this issue, we asked for your stories. And what came in for the art was an abundance of stories and narrative. But it was these 8 pieces that were selected. And it's because of the range of story, the diversity in these visual stories, as well as the range in the artist approach. So there's a range of artistic medium that's represented in this issue that's really off the charts. We are featuring drawings and paintings. We have collage work. We have glass mosaic art in this issue, and we have work that was completed digitally. And even though every single one of these pieces brings a different story and brings its own perspective and its own unique way of making art to our issue, there is something that all of these pieces really do have in common. And for me, it's to say that these pieces were really all created with a depth of narrative and an incredible sensitivity, and it's partnered with an accomplished artistry and technique. And the marriage of those two things is what makes every single one of these 8 pieces absolutely outstanding. The other thing that these works have in common is a sense of, from the cover all the way through the magazine, there's just a great visual harmony where each piece stands alone. It is its own unique entry to the magazine, but supports the sensibility of all the other visual components in it. And I think that's really an exciting group of pieces. So with that, I want to introduce, and I'm really going to try better to get it up on my screen share in a second here, Our Reality by Jessica Carvajal. Jessica is a professional industrial designer and Philadelphia-based illustrator working with watercolor, pastel, chalk, and digital illustration. Jessica believes that an image can empower and move communities towards a common cause. She recognizes the impact that visual language plays in modern culture. Her Our Reality is a call to reflect on the history of struggle in the Black, Indigenous, and people of color community, and questions the idea of justice and freedom in our modern society. Please welcome Jessica Carvajal.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, before to explain my piece, I just wanted to say something before. First, I'm Colombian. My mom is white, my dad is Black. So I always been in the middle, like trying to identify with both communities and try to understand both. And I feel like at the end of the day, we are just humans, and that is only that matters for me. So I came to United States, especially Philadelphia, a couple of years ago. And I feel like Philly is my home. It's the place when I develop more of my art job. So I just wanted to say that before, because obviously I have this accent, so I would just want to explain what. So first, Pam, you gonna share the image, or do you want me to share the image from my computer?
Can you not see it? I did put it up. Let me try
No.
again. Sorry, guys. This should do it. Better?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, my name is Jessica Carbaja. I'm a visual designer and artist here in Philadelphia. My artwork basically try to share a message of heritage, culture, biodiversity. Is more a social and political art. So I made this piece especially for the Philadelphia Stories magazine. When I heard about the project of Philadelphia Stories with the Black History Month, I was super excited. I was super excited because I thought that was the perfect opportunity for me to share my ideas or what I think about the Black history, not just here globally, and also about what is my critics' perspective about especially what happened with the Black community last year in 2020. So I wanted to make one piece that represented like Black heritage and also the unfortunately events that happened under unfair situations last year. So first I'm gonna talk about more the concept of the piece in general, and then I'm gonna focus in little pieces inside the piece, the big piece, to understand why this the information this way, why we found white people in the piece, and all the colors and stuff. So first of all, I wanted to say like the general concept of the piece is try to share like our community as a one, as focused in not just the movement, Black Lives Movement. It was also try to share like who is behind the movement, the evidence, the facts that made this movement so important. Why it was so important last year than ever. So now, principal in the piece, like the main character that is the blue girl holding the name and representation wants to make a questioning us the what is liberty, what is equality, how the community react last year to the situation, and also like I wanted to put around like some messages that I saw in the protest last year. Also, the girl that is in the right side with the megaphone, I went to write the names of the losses that we had last year in the Black community, like what happened with George Floyd last year, what happened with Verona last year. Like remember those unfortunate events, and remember, because we cannot forget, we cannot allow that this happen again, because it's now a part of our history, and we have to do something about it. With this business, always I wanted to say like silence is not an option, and we have to raise our voice, and we have to not stop in, we have to see the deep message of this kind of process that we had last year. Also, I put some white people around because, well, I tell you, my mom is white, so we found a lot of white members or white people that support the movement, and they're affected for this too. They have the losses too, and we are just humans. In this perspective, I feel like we are just humans, and we are just one, and we have to support each other if we want to avoid this kind of bad events that happened last year. Also, the last element that I want to talk about is the mask. I don't have a mask, but the mask is like you can see through. What happened? I live in South Philly, and I saw a couple of neighbors dying because they didn't have the support, healthy support for the government last year. It was so sad, and nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about that, and still we have a lot of problems, and I think it's like no fair. Like don't see that when I see like we didn't have like enough support last year, and even this year, and in our Black community and BIPOC community too. So yeah, that's it.
Jessica, it's an amazing piece, and we are so excited about it. And to have you speak about your motivation and what you've included, we could have spent all night, I think, talking about what's in here and what you included. And I wish we could hear even more. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys for letting me part of this. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Next, I want to present Purple Head Wrap 2 by Erica Richards, a professional illustrator. Erica Richards earned her BFA from Moore College of Art and Design in Philadelphia. Using watercolors and Prismacolor pencils, the focus of her work is the female figure and Black women of grandeur and fantasy. Her award-winning work is the reminder to the world that Black people's existence surpasses the American history story far beyond class, race, and culture. Erica, hello. Tell us about Purple Head Wrap 2.
Sure. Did you want me to put Purple Head Wrap on, or should I? Or
I'm working on it. I'm almost there.
I'm very patient.
Share screen.
But I do have Purple Head Wrap right here with me. If you guys can.
Oh.
Okay, so Purple Head Wrap, goodness, what can I say about her? So Purple Head Wrap, this one, she is a part of a series called Head Wrap, and this is actually like the 2.0 Head Wrap. So this is the second part of, this is the second round of the Head Wrap series. And each time that I do it, I want to do something a little different. So this time, how I had the, the swirls and, the missing limbs and things like that, very decorative. But the Head Wrap series actually occurred, what was it? I think it was in 2019. I was actually quite insecure about my art style. And my art style is, very, I like to say fantastical. So I do Black mermaids and elves and period pieces with, Black women in these like opulent period garb and things like that. Like I have a piece, this is what I worked on today. That's finished today. But the period garb is usually very European. Tudor style and the Regency era and stuff like that. So back in 2019, I was supposed to vend at this jazz festival where, most of the patrons were African-American. And I thought to myself that, my artwork, even though the subject matter was Black women, that my art wasn't quote unquote Black enough. It wasn't really Black art or what you think when you hear the word Black art. And that's where the Head Wrap series came in, where I was like, I need, like a Black Power, Black Panther hand or something like that. And these women in head wraps, it needed to be Black, more Black. And as I was talking yesterday with my mother, they were just saying, how God does things like that, where he takes your insecurities and he makes, it's like a phoenix. He makes a phoenix out of the ashes. So out of my insecurity came this series that everybody really loves. And every year I keep doing the series and I do something different with it every year. So about the materials, so Purple Head Wrap and all the head wraps, all the figures are with graphite, just regular drawing pencils, and the head wraps are with watercolor. And the borders were actually digitally put in after I did the piece and I scanned them in, and the border I put in digitally because I work traditionally all the time. I don't really do a lot of digital work, and I did the border traditionally, but it just didn't look good when I scanned it in. So I said, let me redo the border digitally. And this is actually the original Purple Head Wrap right here. So this is the original one. I hope you guys can all see her.
She's beautiful.
That's the original border right there, that purple border. And when I scanned it in, it just didn't look clean enough. So that's a digital border. Yeah, so.
Erica, thank you very much for sharing.
And Head Wrap, Purple Head Wrap is available, and she's also available for prints. If you go on my website, ericarichards.com, she's available with prints, and you can get her in any size that you want, and she's already framed, and they ship it to you with the hang-in implements right on there. You just have to put it on your wall.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you for sharing your work with Philadelphia Stories.
Thank you.
Let me introduce Studio Session 4 by Nazir Savari. Nazir Savari is a Philadelphia-based artist who has been involved with art making his entire life. Savari studied fine arts and illustration in California and credits many mentors in the development of his technical skills and philosophies as an artist. The artist's current work serves as a statement that his Blackness matters and is important. Much of this work is inspired by the need for Black men to show vulnerability and deal with their own mental health. Welcome, Nazir Savari.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hello.
Yeah, so this piece was basically a response to a conversation that me and my friend, who is the sitter in this painting, his name is Leroy Kareem. And one day we were in the studio, and he just wanted to be around me just so he could do some of his work as well. He's a photographer. We just had this real intimate and wonderful conversation just about growing up in Philadelphia. And a lot of emotions came up about not belonging, or, you know, toxic masculinity, as some would say, or just I would say misunderstood masculinity, and how to express that, how to express your emotions, how to express and let people know that you're depressed, and what does depression look like in a man, in a young man. And we were really on the same page about a lot of stuff, just growing up and being depressed, and understanding that it's a mental illness. It's not something that you can just click off and on. It's something that you learn how to deal with as you grow older in life, and just being in communities and atmospheres where people tell you stuff like toughen up, or men don't cry, or you shouldn't show your emotions, and that's not true. And having those conversations of how to debunk those narratives as a young man, and how to create a new narrative that you can be masculine and emotionally intelligent. So yeah, it was very, 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 very intimate. And even like the quote, "I am a man," was a knock on a lot of years ago. There was a protest with a bunch of workers who felt the way about their manhood. And I'm giving a real lamest terminology of breaking this down. But it just was a pun on that, saying that you are a man. You're still a man if you cry. You're still a man if you're sad some days. And manhood may look different to different people. It's not always this stoic hero or this knight in shining armor, you know? So, and just talking about spirituality, the angel number 444, what that means. So yeah. And the materials here, it was a bunch of different materials. I think I used oil paint, acrylic, oil pastels, and this is on cardboard. So the series of techniques was a lot of, so I do this thing where I oil paint as well, but sometimes before I got into oil painting, when I was working just with acrylic, I would paint like an oil painter while using my acrylic. So I would always kind of keep my acrylics wet so that I would get these nice milky blends. But I started to wipe stuff away after a while, just experimenting and see what that says in the work. And I think that's actually been helping me, because it furthers the conversation that, you know, and for me on a personal standpoint, I'm not whole yet. I'm still developing. I'm still young. And these portraits, I don't have to color in every block. I don't have to render everything. And that's kind of a knock to that. Like, I'm not fully put together yet. I'm still growing. I'm still working on my own magnum opus, which is me. And that's shown through my work. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that with us tonight. I would love to see this piece in person. Where is it? Have you ever shown it?
So, you know, the funny thing about this piece is I never thought nobody was going to like this piece. So I kind of scrapped it. I took pictures of it, and then I scrapped it.
No.
Yeah, that's our. I thought the other piece that I sent, I thought you were going to like that more. But when you chose this one, I was super surprised.
You never know. And everything, you submitted amazing work, and we're just so appreciative that you have shared your work with us. Even
Thank you guys.
It's only digital now.
Yeah.
Lesson learned. Hang on to them. They're wonderful.
Yes, lesson learned. Lesson learned.
Thank you, Nazir.
No problem.
The next piece that appears in Philadelphia Stories is called Burden of Strength. It's by Yannick Lowry. A native of New York City, Yannick Lowry currently resides in Philadelphia. He claims both cities as cultural and creative influences and as fuel for his own practice. Lowry attended the Atlanta College of Art and Columbia College in Chicago, where he studied sculpture and graphic design respectively. The artist describes his current collage work as being activated by social justice, injustice, materiality, and visions of alternate futures. Yannick Lowry, please tell us about Burden of Strength.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction and selecting my piece for this issue. Really honored to be published alongside such a talented group of wordsmiths and visual creators. As you said before, my name is Jonnick Lowry. I'm a visual artist, primarily working in the medium of paper collage. I arranged this piece during the early days of the pandemic, which seems so long ago, but it was around the time where the term essential was being tossed around a lot. And the word really started to trigger me in a certain way when I started to think about how it was used in relation to labor in this country. The irony of essential workers, like this sudden value, was really startling. What was even more shocking was really the pride that these essential workers took in their newfound status, despite being treated as completely non-essential before the pandemic. And to this day, often beyond like the performative praise. I think that long overdue validation that these essential workers received really somehow reaffirmed their sacrifice and willing to work, which was just really ironic for me. So, these positions were often not salaried, high risk, at will, a lot of times just undesirable positions. So with this piece, I really tried to illustrate this idea using figures literally holding up this sky. I think that really represented this mentality of labor that has been glorified and often at the expense of minorities. So although these populations have developed these really strong work ethics, they've been forced or willing to be martyrs, putting work before everything, their own health in many cases, thus the title Burden of Strength. I think what this pandemic has really done for most of us is force us to really consider what's important for our survival and our comfort. And I think more than anything, it's exploited the inequities in so many spheres and given us an opportunity to reckon with some of those dated patterns, socially, politically, and as described in this piece, surrounding work. A lot of my work attempts to tackle concepts using printed imagery as a communal reference, because everybody sees this paper material around so they can kind of form their own ideas about it. But once I get it and I can layer it, I can kind of use those references to create a new image. That's what I love about collage, off topic, but that's my whole methodology as far as arranging these paper arrangements. You can find more of my work at severepaper.com. I'm also on Instagram at severe.paper. I'll just keep it brief because I'm honestly just still digesting all of the beautiful words and heavy content that I've heard tonight, and it's getting late. You can see I'm already ready for bed, but this has been awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for sharing your work with the magazine. The next piece that appears in Philadelphia Stories is called House of Romanov by Jeff Rivers. Jeff Rivers is an African-American self-taught visual artist, designer, and community advocate who works to empower minoritized groups through social impact art programs and street art. Through community advocacy and art practice, Rivers works to increase access to art education and exhibition spaces for people of color. An active arts educator, Rivers has worked across Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and has participated in many group exhibitions and solo shows in Philadelphia. Welcome, Jeff Rivers.
Hi, Pam. Thanks for having me. It's been really great listening to everybody talk about their work, whether visual or literature. Do you have my piece to share?
It's
or do you
coming
want me
up
to?
right
I can
now.
share my screen if possible. Do I have the ability to share my own screen? All right.
I think it should be up now.
So this is I think I made this sometime mid-fall. I think September, if I look through my phone. Yeah, gallery. It's about 47 by 65 or so. Most of everything I do now is large scale just because I find it easier. At least I think it's a lot more exciting to try to draw a figure as close to human proportion as possible. And this is like a mix of like oil stick, acrylic, and fabric. And I really have gotten into fabric really since about October, September, and that really kind of got pushed off of me using like paper mache within it. And that really kind of came from like, you know, Black visual artists like Mark Bradford, and his like his paper technique with his paintings, and like Najike Crosby. And really kind of looking at these Black artists that really kind of like, you know, and like two of those artists, they both are like MacArthur Grant winners. And so like I was looking at like MacArthur Grant winners because like I want to win like a MacArthur Grant for painting just because I think it'd be cool one day. And I noticed that like all these Black artists, they all really started like pushing, they are renowned for pushing the medium of painting past just pure paint. And so that's kind of really something I've been really interested in. And particularly choosing fabric, I really am interested in the work of the Nigerian British artist Yinka Shonibare. If any of you guys have seen his work, it's just fucking spectacular. It is amazing, the type of sartorial fabric choices he chooses. He speaks of so many things. A lot of it is grounded within this post-colonial dialogue, but I really am just very much interested in this idea of like fabric, you know, and really what fabric really speaks to us, especially for us African Americans. You know, we have a lot of cultural ideas around like our sartorial sense, our fashion. There's so many things for African Americans, so like our clothes, like, you know, we got to be the coolest person in the room. Like that's like basically the code of being a little Black boy, an element in public school is you got to dress good, you know. And so I've always been very much interested in this relationship that we as African Americans have with fabrics and our fashion sense, and more specifically like how fabric can be used as a way of myth making, you know, because I feel like as African Americans, we probably have one of the most prodded, reconstructed, deconstructed identities in world history. You know, the African American identity is one of a myth, one that's constantly being built up, taken down, being added to, being changed. You know, it's constantly something that's the African American identity is really something that's in constant flux. It's never been static, and it probably never will be static, at least in our lifetime. So I'm really interested in the ability of like how fabric, and especially with a relationship to being an African American, speaks to, you know, kind of cultural history. And I guess this particular painting was taken from, I think I'm 25 now. I think this was taken maybe I was 8. And I'm like the darkest skinned person, and like with the red overcoat and the white pants. And this was taken on like my great grandma's couch here in South Carolina, and it was taken like right before we were getting ready to church. And the two biggest figures, the two adult figures, are my grandpa and my grandma Deborah. And kind of, you know, I don't know, like I've been doing a lot of paintings based off of just photographing things and making paintings off of them. And I've been very drawn to family photographs. So this was just one that kind of just got caught up in the moment of what I was making at the time.
Jeff, would you just speak a brief moment about identity and the title of this piece?
Well, House of Romanov, I chose it. The Romanovs were the last ruling dynasty. House of Romanovs were the last ruling dynasty within Russia before the famous Bolshevik Revolution of the early 1900s, which basically started the wave of communism within world history. And so they were really, I was a political science major in undergrad. I love politics. I love world history. And I'm very interested in revolutions, you know, always, you know, where this huge paradigm shift where an entire society and culture is choosing something different than what it was told to have before. And so the Romanovs, they were ransacked. They were all executed. This is where we get the legend of Anastasia. If anybody remembers that animated movie about Anastasia, where she was rumored to be the last living daughter of the Romanov family that was able to survive the mass execution. So I titled it kind of a House of Romanov as sort of this like reclamation of, you know, like based upon their clothes, of sort of them having this like Black family sort of being like that of royalty, you know. I guess basically really like putting those historically within kind of sort of this like 1900s type royalty. But also with the title of Romanov, because it's sort of the end of a royal line, you know. And you know, I'm very interested in these ideas of myths and myth making. I feel like all of our history is nothing but myths that we're making for ourselves constantly. So this was kind of, I guess, my chance to sort of like create my own myth about the Black Romanovs that were the last rulers of Russia.
Jeff Rivers, thank you for talking about your piece. Appreciate you being here tonight. The next piece that appears in Philadelphia Stories is called John Lewis. It is by Yolanda Ward. Born and raised in Philadelphia, Yolanda Ward is a paper collage artist. In 2009, Ward left corporate America and recreated her life as a full-time artist. Her art is made entirely of paper. All the layers, patterns, marks, and textures that make up her creations are comprised of bits and pieces of paper, including handmade papers. Layering paper in this manner to create an artwork connects her to quilters throughout history and the way they told and tell their stories. Welcome, Yolanda Ward.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's been so wonderful. And thank you for being such a part of this wonderful magazine around all of this talent and creativity.
Yolanda, I see your John Lewis in the background next to you.
Yeah, I'm preparing him to leave. He's going to his forever home.
Where will that be?
A purchaser saw it online and it's going on its way.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. But it's a 30 by 40 canvas, so it's pretty big. My work, like you said, it's made entirely of paper. Like there's no paint, there's no drawing, there's no pencil. My work is all little bits and pieces of paper. So when you see it live, you'll see texture, you'll see the bit, you might see, all kinds of things that will pop out at you. From the shading on the neck collar, all of that is created by layering the paper. As you said, I make the paper. I have paper from all over the world. I've been carrying paper around for 40 years before I even knew I was going to use paper in collage work. I just knew I couldn't throw it away. My work is more about telling a story, and I work in all different areas. And my goal is, number one, to tell a story, and number two, to pull you in, to give you, hopefully you'll get lost inside of it. I'm more of a process person, so it's the actual making of the paper, is the actual selecting of it, the research that comes in before I even get to this point. So this is really about, we stand on the shoulders of so many, and that's where all of the slave children and families are underneath the bridge. And now we stand on John Lewis's shoulders in order for us to continue to move forward. So I do all kinds of subject matter. It just depends on what moves me, and hopefully it moves someone else. But that's kind of my thing, my story. I come from corporate America, and I was there for 40 years. I started as a graphic designer and worked my way up to a creative director, where I was in charge of, multi-million-dollar exhibitions at the Philadelphia Museum of Art and sports. So I was always surrounded around that kind of creativity. I just didn't know that I would be in it like this at this time. So it's been wonderful.
Your work is wonderful. Thank you for sharing this. And my question for you is the words that are in the piece that you spoke about, they're in paper too?
They're in paper too. They're in paper too. Everything is a piece of paper.
Yolanda Ward, thank you so much for sharing tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The final visual piece that appears in Philadelphia Stories in our winter issue is Am I Blue by Ellen Tibberino. Visual arts and the spirit of creativity have always been a part of Ellen Tibberino's life. Like both of her parents, Ellen is a distinguished visual arts career. A Philadelphia-based glass mosaic artist, she finds inspiration in the natural world and within her artistic process itself. Her work has exhibited in numerous galleries in the Philadelphia area and beyond, and is held in various collections. Welcome, last but not least, Ellen Tibberino.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this Philadelphia Stories issue. I think this piece fits into the theme, into the mood of this year, this past year. This piece is my self-portrait. It's done from a ceramic cast of my actual face, raku fired. I love the effects on the face. They're achieved by when you raku fire something, when it comes out of the kiln hot, you do newspaper or pine thistles to smoke it up and give this neat effect from the oxidation. Those lines on my face are made from horsehair that I put on the face while it was still cooling. And those are handcrafted roses done in ceramic. And then the background is stained glass, hand cut mosaic. And while it's very beautiful, it's depicting my sadness, my inner sadness that we all deal with. The human condition, you know, things might look one way, but in reality be another way. You know, life is not always sweet. Life is not always, you know, there's two sides of it, you know, but I like to embrace both of those sides because that's the human condition. This year definitely was a blue year, but it's funny, as an artist, it's really helped my practice. I've had more time to focus on my art, what really matters, focus on me without all these distractions, you know, and thank God I do have that art. I do have that to lean on, you know. It's been a long day for me. Today, I started working a workshop for Torchlight, for mural arts. And it's just such a pleasure I have to be able to share my gift. You know, it's always so uplifting to me, you know, like people, their energy really feeds me. So, you know, I'm really, throughout all this, really finding my focus where my head's at. And it's just going to make me go harder and stronger. God willing, if I survive. If we all survive, because tomorrow's not promised, but I'm in a good place. I'm in a good place. And I thank you. Wonderful art. Definitely inspired by hearing everyone's lovely poetry, seeing their wonderful work. And thank you for having me. I can't wait to get the hard copy of this.
Me too. Ellen, just tell us, where is this piece now?
It's right here in my living room.
Nice.
It's one of my favorites. It's funny, some things I price so they don't sell. One day somebody's gonna call me on it though. Because it just captures, you know, you can never do the same thing. At least I can't, you know, exactly the same or recreate that style, that period of time. You know, but I'm very fond of this one.
Thank you for sharing it with the magazine.
Thank you for having me.
We certainly hope that all of our Winter 21 artists will share their work with Philadelphia Stories again in the future. Thank you all so much. Carla, back to you.
Yeah, I thank you, Pam, and thanks to all the artists and writers who shared your work with us tonight. I'm overwhelmed. I feel full, and I don't know. I always enjoy you know, participating in readings, and I had the opportunity to host a lot of readings, and we never really get to hear from the artists. I think this is something we should maybe continue to do. It's just really added a whole extra element and a whole other layer of understanding to the work, which I really appreciated. I hope this is just the start of better things for all of us. And I hope that you all continue to send your work to us and tell people, other people that you know, that we're here. We want to support all, we want to support this community in the best ways that we can by sharing your work for free with everyone, for anyone who wants to read it, for anyone who wants to see it. That's our mission. So thank you all very much. I'm kind of speechless. The people who know me are going to just be kind of like, what is wrong with her tonight? So really, I'm really humbled. So thank you all very much. And please come again. So.